So Segment Stream is using machine learning to evaluate the incremental impact of each web visit using first-party data, even if there isn't a trackable conversion. You're analyzing that session and looking to see the depth of time spent on site, what they looked at, like how legit was that visit. Can you maybe unpack this approach to visit scoring and how you're essentially taking a stab at reconceptualizing the relationship between all the different marketing touch points that we can see to purchase decisions? Unpack that for us.
Right. So actually, we've been talking a bit before this podcast about like the naming for this attribution, because at one point we just wanted to call it multi-touch attribution, but people became so wired that multi-touch attribution should be based on conversions that are tracked based on cookies and then distribute. So like in this case, and everyone was saying multi-touch attribution doesn't work, etc. So should we associate ourselves with multi-touch attribution, even though we are a multi-touch attribution? Because there is a variety of different ways how you do attribution, even in an innovative way. We also wanted to call it like common sense attribution. I wanted to call it like session scoring attribution. We wanted to call it single session attribution. We wanted to call it like conversion modeling. But eventually we ended up with visitor scoring, because it's we have lead scoring, we have LTV scoring, and in a sense we're applying the same technology, but we move upwards. And now we don't have leads, we don't have different information about different lead properties, but now we have visits, and we can score visits, and we can gain some information about like the possibility how much revenue gonna each visit bring. And if we apply statistics, so essentially like if you're gonna bring 5 visitors that have 20% probability to buy, statistically it's the same as bringing 1 visitor who made a purchase, who has 100% probability to buy. So essentially at big numbers, this math plays out. So when we were designing our measurement approach, like Elon Musk, we decided to work out from like from the like basic principles of understanding, like let's understand how it works.
Yeah, first principles.
First principles, and let's make some assumptions. So let's make the first assumption. Understanding full customer journey is impossible. So even the best like multi-touch attribution, like if you take like super advanced multi-touch attribution, data-driven, etc., it still applies credit to all the touch points that happened within the same device, within the same browser. Yes, you can apply some stitching mechanisms by IP address. If it's allowed to track, you can have user ID when someone authenticates on a website, but fraction of such sessions is very limited. And even with IP address, people move all the time with their iPhones. Now, like I'm moving from my home to work, and my IP changes all the time. So you can stitch a lot of similar users working in the same WeWork office, and it doesn't prove that this is the same user, right? So our first assumption was like understanding and seeing full customer journey is impossible.
Yeah.
If it's impossible, that there is no way for us to track conversion and distribute credits between all the touch points, because we don't know all the touch points. And there are so many touch points that happen outside like attribution window from different devices, from different browsers. And nowadays, even on mobile device, when you click on on some ads on Instagram or Facebook, you don't even open it in the website in Safari or Chrome. You open it inside in-app Facebook browser or in-app Instagram browser. And when you're interested, probably you're gonna switch to default browser. So even like within the same device, you have multiple cookies and multiple different like browsers. So we took this assumption. So what can we use as the next closest proxy metric? And we understand like, okay, first idea was we can take like, we can use like add to cart event, or we can use like initiated checkout event. But most of these events are also quite lower funnel. So we uncovered that even add to cart, even though you have like thousands of such events, some people use add to cart just because they use it as a wish list. Some people something to cart only when they made up their mind and then they made a decision. So what else can we measure? And we understood that we need to measure effort. Like, how do we measure effort? For example, if I see some ads, if this ad is relevant to me, I would do something to research the brand, to research the product.
Right.
But what can I do? Eventually, I can click on the ad. So many people argue about incrementality of post-click conversions, but at the same time they say, oh, but post-view conversions are actually incremental. Like, for me, there's like some interesting logic here, because if someone didn't put any effort even to check out your website, why are you making an assumption that like all these millions of impressions that you bombard on Instagram, like YouTube, are actually incremental? And again, like this might be applicable for brands like Coca-Cola, etc., that just need to put this message into your brain, or you already know about this brand. They just need to give you information about some new product line, etc., or something else. But this is if it's like unknown D2C brand. To make an assumption that someone would bother remembering your brand after impression, like for me, it's I cannot understand this logic. For example, today probably you've scrolled your Instagram or YouTube. Like, how many like brands you've remembered from those you did not engage? Can you name one?
Yeah, I would probably only remember the ones that I knew previously, and none of the new ones.
Right. That's why like this like so-called brand awareness, it makes sense for brands that already have like this brand awareness, and they want to strengthen it. But if it's like like startup, unknown D2C brand that just wants to find relevant audience, like you need to target your audience properly, and you need to measure like engagement properly. And we found out that like, okay, our next assumption, if no one clicks on the ad, probably they don't want to put an effort. They're not interested at the moment. So, okay, then we go to clicks. If someone clicks an ad, is there a correlation between click and conversion? Probably there is some, but not that much, because you can just put little like shiny ads on Facebook with like clickbait ads, like that promise you something, or like look really funny, or you can see an amazing photo of beautiful dress. Like you click on the website and actually see that it costs like $15, and actually it's from Alibaba or something like that. So like clicks do not have very good correlation with conversions. So we go next level. You clicked, now you're on the website. So if you're not interested, probably you're gonna just look at few products and you're gonna bounce. But if it's something relevant, you're gonna start your research. You're gonna start like looking, for example, if it's a booking website, you start looking for different destinations. If it's a travel agency, you're gonna start looking at different prices, etc. Eventually, you start investing time. And actually, like we started measuring this time and measuring different actions. And then we take the longest customer journeys that we have using cookies, and we compare like what are the behaviors that like we can identify from these upper funnel campaigns, which are very similar to those behaviors from the longest customer journeys, that can show us that actually this user is interested in the product. And depending on how customers behave and how we measure these patterns, we give a score for every single visit, even if this visit does not end up with a conversion. And then we properly like redistribute the conversions you have probabilistically between all the upper funnel campaigns. How can we do this? First of all, imagine like you have a lot of clicks from, I don't know, from Paraguay and generated 1,000 score. But you have only one conversion from Paraguay, or zero conversions from Paraguay.
Mm-hmm.
And you have 1,000 score generated from US, and you have 100 conversions. So of course we don't like simply distribute score and value and conversions based on the amount of time and like what you've done on the website. If eventually from some like probabilistic stitching mechanisms, we cannot identify that this is relevant. Because if this 1,000 score that is generated from Paraguay, and we don't see any conversion from Paraguay, this score doesn't matter for us. The value of the score will be almost 0. So we also bucket up all the scores, and we try to stitch this probabilistically to distribute real conversions that happen between, for example, like if we see that it's a booking website and someone is booking a flight from US to Dubai, of course, we're not going to match these conversions, conversions purchased for the flight from US to Dubai. We won't match them to upper funnel journeys where someone was looking for a flight from Paris to Prague. So we use a lot of contextual behavioral data also to understand that these customer journeys might be related. And we assign credit or some portion of the conversion to this. So it's very probabilistic model. But again, we play here with statistics and with big numbers. And when you do this properly on big numbers, eventually we see that if you're going to invest more in customers who actually, from specific segments, who actually behave specific way on the website, and from the same parameters they also buy, customers having the same parameters they also buy, eventually your revenue grows. And eventually you have much higher ROAS in your blended marketing mix.
Very interesting. So I want to make sure I got this right. So you're all of this scoring that you're doing. Step one is every single session, you're scoring them based on activity, whether they buy or not, whether you can stitch other sessions together or not. But you have a lot of data for sessions that you were able to stitch together, and you can see what were the behavioral activities early on at the top of the funnel, and you're scoring those in all of the sessions. So you're baking in this whole journey in a sense, or the trackable journey from what you can see, and you're deciding or essentially evaluating the outcome of that by comparing it. You're testing the usefulness of the scoring by comparing let's use Facebook, for example. You would compare the incrementality of Facebook based on conversions in a test versus the incrementality of Facebook based on the scores that you assign to every session. And the scores are a lot closer, a lot better aligned. Do I have that right?
The problem is sometimes for your upper funnel campaigns, you might not even have conversions. So even with big clients, sometimes we see they have many campaigns on Facebook. And yes, one of the campaigns might have hundreds of conversions, but some campaigns have just 50 conversions. Mm-hmm. And when you go to the ad group level, it's even less. And then you go at creative level, and it's even less. And there is no way for Facebook to properly optimize because it's just not enough signals. And if you move one level closer to the click and you evaluate actual behavior, you're going to get much more signals. So usually we can have 10 times more signals. And also, as I've mentioned, conversion is only attributed to the last cookie. And on platforms like Facebook, on TikTok, usually people they use mobile a lot, and many people buy on desktop, or people just browse within in-app browser and then they switch. So this conversion there is no technical possibility for this conversion even to be attributed to the initial click. That's why with visit scoring or single session scoring, we can call it this way, you always have a consistency in cookies. You always know that cookie is consistent within one visit. So you never lose the traffic source. So as soon as visit ended, we can evaluate this visit, give it a score, and immediately attribute it to the traffic source that initiated this visit. So there is no way to lose information here. So this is forward-looking model. And it might be that this user will convert in the future from a different device or browser. We don't know, but we just evaluate the probability of this.